This last week, I had the privilege of meeting a guy named Pastor Troy from Las Vegas. Pastor Troy is a pastor in Las Vegas. He used to be a gang member, and then God got a hold of his life, and man, he's got this incredible ministry in Las Vegas where he has an incredible relationship with the community, an incredible relationship with the gang members, and an incredible relationship with the police officers. I got introduced to him through Brent Newman, one of our CHP guys. That's Brent standing next to him. That's the undersheriff of all Las Vegas there. And these guys are shutting down violent crime and restoring lives in Las Vegas like you've never seen. In one whole area, Pastor Troy, just by being a pastor to kids in that area, has reduced fatal shootings by 65%. So he's seeing whole schools change. I said, Pastor, I was talking to him on the phone just like that, and I said, Pastor Troy, tell me, how are you seeing so much results? And he said, just by being there and being in love with God. We're inviting God into the violence. He told me this one story. He said there was one middle school where every couple of weeks there was a shooting. And they couldn't figure it out. Why is there so much violence at this one middle school? And finally, it came to a culmination as an 8-year-old boy was caught in crossfire and shot to death. And the community was just shocked and depressed and volatile. And the sheriff said, Pastor, is there anything you could do? And he said, yeah. And he called a couple of his leaders together and he said, let's just go on campus at this middle school and we'll start serving lunch to the kids and listening to them. By serving lunch to the kids and listening to them, some of the kids started opening up, just started opening up. And they said, you know, what happens is we get in fights here, and then our older brothers who are in gangs, they start getting in fights about our fights, and then it escalates till someone gets shot. That's what's going on. We're like, where do these fights happen? They happen in such and such alley. And one day he said, you know, there's gonna be a big, violent brawl in this alley today. You know what Pastor Troy did? He called his worship leader. He said, would you get some worship leaders for me? He said, what are we gonna do, Pastor? We're gonna have a church service? He said, yeah. He said, we're gonna have it at whose church? Whose church are we having it at? He goes, no, we're having it at 3:30 p.m. right after school in this alley next to the middle school. And they started just bringing worship into the place where the kids were fighting. And the kids would show up, and instead of fight, they began to worship. And then the parents started showing up. And parents who didn't even know Christ would start applauding and clapping for the fact that no one was fighting and no violence was accelerating. And then a few little kids would break off and go, no, we're gonna go over to this alley and fight. And a worship team would literally get in a van and they would drive over to that place and start worshiping over there. You couldn't escape it. They didn't avoid it. They didn't deny it. They sent God into the heart of it. What is it that God wants from us? He wants us to say, discouragement, you're not the boss of me. I don't care what bad news there is. I don't care what another wave of horrible, difficult things there is, because my God is bigger than those headlines, and we're not gonna run from it. We're gonna invite God into the center of it. And we're gonna see that out of what the devil meant for harm, lives are gonna be changed. He said to me last night, he said, Pastor Curt, that was about 5 years ago. That middle school has been radically changed. It's one of the safest, best place to send your kid to school now. The God who did that in Las Vegas can do it here in Sacramento. He can do it through you and I. If we'll get into that pattern of prayer,